Rock and her brother bullets to the head. Let me handle
Buddy,
her.
will bet against me? It's lost.
But
Anybody
the streets ain't ours no more. We marks out here.
See that you're dedicated.
I'ma handle it.
Hello, Calvin.
Snaps and pops in to see that you...
She's gonna do something crazy, Kanan.
Kanan, just like the game. The more you push, the further away that shit gon' get.
Two people who once called each other brothers are about to become each other's worst enemy. And only one of them is walking away from what happens next. Queens is one episode away from a bloodbath nobody saw coming, and the man standing in the middle of it all is Kanan Stark. Raising Kanan has officially entered its final stretch, and episode 7 is the moment everything the show has been building toward for 5 seasons finally comes crashing down. Titled Penultimate Means Second to Last. This episode is confirmed to premiere on Friday, July 31st, and just that title alone tells you everything you need to know. This isn't just another episode. This is the beginning of the end. The setup for a series finale that's going to close out Kanan Stark's story for good on August 7th. And after everything we just watched go down, there is no way episode 7 is going to slow down for even a second. Let's talk about where things actually stand right now because the fallout from the last episode changed everything. Breeze made a move that nobody expected. Instead of letting the war escalate out of control, he went straight to Haffy, the man who had quietly become Rock's most valuable business partner, and he studied him. He watched how tightly Haffy's operation was protected, how loyal his people were, and he realized attacking him head-on would be a losing battle. So Breeze did something smarter. He convinced Stefano to sit down and make a deal with Haffy directly, pulling him away from Rock completely. And Stefano, who had been letting his anger control every decision he made, actually listened. That single conversation didn't just weaken Rock's crew. It flipped the entire balance of power in Queens overnight. But while Breeze was making calculated moves, Kanan was doing the exact opposite. He was warned directly not to go after anyone without backup. And he ignored that warning completely. Kanan went after Flosi alone, convinced he could handle it himself, and it backfired in the most humiliating way possible. Flosi didn't just defend himself. He completely dismantled Kanan's attack, caught him off guard, and had a gun pointed at him before Kanan even knew what hit him. That moment matters more than people realize, because it's a warning sign. Kanan's confidence is starting to outrun his actual control, and in a world like this, that kind of mistake gets people killed. At the same time, on a completely different side of the city, Garcia was digging for answers that everyone wanted buried. He used every connection he had left to find out exactly who was responsible for killing Fame, and he got his answer. But that information came at a devastating cost. The person who handed Garcia that truth paid for it with their life. And when Garcia finally passed that information to Jukebox, something shifted in her. This wasn't just about grief anymore. This was about knowing exactly who to blame, and knowing that Snaps and Pop, two of the most powerful and untouchable figures in this entire story, were the ones responsible. Garcia wanted to walk away after that. He wanted out. But Jukebox is not the type of person who lets something like this go. And there's a strong chance she's about to pull Garcia back in one more time to help her finish what she just started. Meanwhile, Marvin and Rock were dealing with their own collapse. Losing Haffy as a business partner wasn't just a financial hit. It was a signal to the entire city that their grip on power was slipping. Marvin said something in that moment that hit harder than people expected, telling Rock that no matter what happens, he's never going to stop protecting Kanan. And that kind of loyalty is exactly what's fueling this entire war. Marvin didn't stop there either. He raided Kanan's spot looking for him, came up empty, and in the middle of all that frustration, Marvin and Rock made a decision that changed the direction of this entire season. They went after Haffy and they killed him. That single act took what was already a cold, simmering conflict between two families and turned it into something far more dangerous. There's no walking this back now. Someone in this story is not surviving what comes next. And after watching everything fall into place the way it has, episode 7 is where we finally find out who. Now here's where things get serious, because the official synopsis for episode 7 has been confirmed, and it lines up perfectly with everything we just watched unfold. The synopsis reads that Rock is facing pressure from every single direction, struggling to hold on to control as his alliances collapse around him, while Kanan's growing ruthlessness starts threatening the relationships that once kept him protected. Read that again because that's not a vague teaser. That's basically a confirmation that everything is about to break apart at once, for almost everyone involved. Let's start with Rock, because her situation is genuinely brutal right now. She just lost Haffy as a business partner. She's dealing with a war she never fully wanted. And now she's being told directly that she's about to face pressure from all sides. That phrase alone should worry anyone who's been rooting for her. It suggests this isn't just about Marvin standing beside her anymore. It suggests threats are coming from multiple directions at once, possibly from Stefano, possibly from Breeze, and possibly from Kanan himself. Rock has survived a lot in this series by staying sharp and staying patient, but patience only works when you're not being attacked from every angle simultaneously. This is the moment where we find out if she still has what it takes to hold her ground, or if this is the beginning of her downfall. Then there's Kanan, and honestly this is where the story gets the most emotionally heavy. The synopsis specifically says his growing ruthlessness is threatening his relationships, and that's not a small detail. That's the entire arc of this character finally reaching its breaking point. We've watched Kanan slowly become colder, more reckless, more willing to make violent decisions on his own without thinking through the consequences. And now the show itself is telling us that this coldness is about to cost him the people closest to him. That almost certainly means Jukebox. It almost certainly means Breeze. The two people who have shaped Kanan the most throughout this entire series might be the very people he ends up pushing away, or worse, standing against. Think about where Jukebox is emotionally right now. She just found out that Snaps and Pop were responsible for Fame's death. And that kind of information doesn't just sit quietly. Changes people. Jukebox has spent this entire series trying to hold on to some version of who she used to be. Someone with morals, someone who still believes in loyalty and justice, even while being surrounded by violence every single day. But finding out the truth about Fame might be the exact thing that pushes her past the point of no return. If she decides to go after Snaps and Pop herself, and there's a real possibility she does exactly that, then Kanan is going to be faced with an impossible choice. Does he let her walk into that danger alone? Or does he go with her, fully aware that helping her means crossing a line that can never be uncrossed? And that's really the heart of what makes this episode so tense. Because if Kanan does go after Snaps and Pop to protect Jukebox, that's not just a violent decision. That's a direct betrayal of Breeze, the man who built Kanan into who he is, the man who has protected him, guided him, and treated him like family this entire season. Breeze has made it clear more than once that loyalty matters more than anything else in this world. So if Kanan makes a move against Snaps and Pop without Breeze's approval, especially after everything Breeze has done to keep this war under control, that's the kind of decision that could permanently break the bond between them. And knowing how this story has built Breeze as someone who does not tolerate disloyalty, that confrontation whenever it happens is not going to be calm. At the same time, Stefano is still out there, and his anger has not cooled down even slightly. If anything, losing Haffy as a partner and watching his plans fall apart is only going to push him further into desperation. Desperate men make fatal mistakes, and with only 2 episodes remaining before this series ends completely, the show doesn't have time to let Stefano's storyline drag out any longer. This feels like the episode where his arc finally reaches its conclusion one way or another. Whether that means he goes down swinging in an attempt to take Rock out permanently, or whether Rock finally finds the opening she's been waiting for to end him once and for all, either outcome is going to reshape everything about how the final 2 episodes play out. Everything happening in episode 7 is connecting at once: Rock's collapsing alliances, Kanan's growing ruthlessness, Jukebox's desire for revenge, Breeze's demand for loyalty, and Stefano's spiraling anger, and all of it is pointing toward the same outcome. Someone in this circle of power is not going to survive what's coming, and after everything the synopsis just confirmed, it feels like more than one person's story is about to end in this episode alone. Now let's talk about what this actually means for Jukebox, because out of everyone in this story, her arc might be the one that hits the hardest heading into these final 2 episodes. She has spent this entire series caught between 2 worlds: the daughter who wants justice done the right way, and the person who's been forced to survive inside a family built on violence. Finding out that Snaps and Pop killed Fame isn't just information to her. It's confirmation that the people running this world will never stop taking from her unless someone forces them to stop. And the moment she decides to act on that anger, the moment she picks up a weapon and goes after them herself, That's the moment Jukebox stops being someone caught in the middle of this war and becomes someone actively fighting in it. That decision changes everything about her relationship with Kanan too. Because if Kanan finds out she's making a move against Snaps and Pop, there's no version of this story where he lets her do it alone. He's going to go with her, not because he wants to cross Breeze, but because protecting Jukebox has always mattered more to him than almost anything else. And that single choice, made out of loyalty rather than ambition, could end up being the decision that finally drives a permanent wedge between him and Breeze. Think about how far Breeze has gone to keep Kanan out of unnecessary danger this entire season. He's warned him. He's guided him. He's tried to make him think before acting. If Kanan disregards all of that to go after Snaps and Pop without permission, that's not just disobedience. That's a direct challenge to Breeze's authority, and Breeze is not someone who's going to let that go quietly. And here's where it gets even more painful. If Snaps and Pop really do end up dead by the end of this episode, the aftermath is not going to feel like a victory. It's going to feel like the moment everything Jukebox and Kanan built together starts falling apart. Because once the adrenaline fades and the reality of what she just did sets in, Jukebox is going to have to face what she's become. She didn't set out to be a killer. She set out to get justice for her father. But the line between those two things gets blurrier every single time violence becomes the answer, and there's a real chance that this is the moment Jukebox looks at Kanan standing beside her, covered in the same violence she just committed, and realizes she doesn't recognize either of them anymore. That fear, that guilt, that internal collapse is exactly what could push her toward the badge. Jukebox has been working closely with Garcia this entire time, someone deeply connected to law enforcement, and if she truly wants to distance herself from the world she just proved she's capable of surviving in, becoming a police officer might be the only path that makes sense to her. It would be the ultimate contradiction, the daughter of one of the most feared families in Queens turning around and becoming exactly what her family has spent their entire lives avoiding. And if that happens, it sets up something devastating for the final episode, because we already know how this story ends for Kanan and Jukebox in the world of power. We know where their paths eventually lead. Watching that history start locking into place piece by piece right in front of us is going to hit differently than anything else this final season has done. Meanwhile, Breeze is not going to sit back and let any of this happen without consequences. If Kanan really does defy him, expect Breeze to demand loyalty in the most extreme way possible, which could mean asking Kanan to turn against Rock and Marvin entirely to prove where his allegiance truly lies. That's the kind of demand that forces Kanan into a corner he can't talk his way out of. He can't protect Jukebox, satisfy Breeze, and keep peace with Rock and Marvin all at the same time. Something has to give, and whatever choice he makes in this episode is going to define exactly who Kanan becomes by the time this series reaches its final moments.